Hey everybody, this is Perch. I'm here with Joe. It's late, Joe.
Yeah,
Well,
it is, but whatever. Fuck
well,
it, man.
sort of. I mean, it's at 10:30. 10:30 is not late. I don't know about you, but I really get going around 11 o'clock at night, and then I hit the clubs. That's what you do too, right?
I have at times. I
Okay.
used to, yeah. But, no, what were you saying?
No. That's exactly. Well, actually, right before we came on, we were talking about. I got a request, so this is it will come in the future. So this will be something Mumbles can bitch about early. But we got the request for you and I to do a bad pitches what if version. Does that sound like fun?
It is. It's going to be. We're we're going to work really hard to make sure that all the pitches aren't just like, "What if blah 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 was good?" So like, because that's going to get boring for us. Maybe not for you, the listener, but
I mean, I think you could do a blanket statement of what if all of this was better. But anyway, yeah.
What if Steve Rogers was evicted from that apartment complex he used to live in where he met Bernie Rosenthal before they really fell in love?
It's just page after page of just like Captain America alone in his apartment. That's all it is.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
You,
What if John Walker was Captain America for two more issues?
sure. I like you just had a good one though. We spoiled it. So you had one for Jane Foster.
Yeah, what if Jane Foster was Jared Foster, the first gay man worthy of Mjolnir?
Well, I mean, in theory, they just did Miles Morales.
Oh, true.
Yeah. That's true. Sorry. Anyway, we'll do this video. It'll be a lot of fun. But I had a question for you, and we were talking about it a little bit earlier. You're a fan of the Harley Quinn cartoon.
I am.
Why are you a fan of that cartoon?
I suppose if we're gonna go psychological on this,
Hmm.
I was really the right age for Batman the Animated Series. So I'm in like third grade when that's coming out, and I was collecting all the action figures. I was really into it. So for me, Harley feels like the adult version of a Saturday morning cartoon of like what Batman the Animated Series was. So I think it hits like a weird kind of nostalgia for me, but I do really appreciate the dark, uh, really dark humor that it is willing to like go above and beyond. That they are willing to kill off mainstay characters and like keep them dead. That it is very much its own universe and it's its own version of these characters, and it's willing to take that to the logical conclusion of like, let's kill off this character or that character, or let's just blow up Gotham. Like, who cares? It's its own Elseworld. So I appreciate that about it.
Is there something odd in this cartoon, which is meant to be kind of I mean, I don't know. It's not a serious attempt at the DC universe. Is doing a more substantial version with the characters and the plot and I mean, in the point I guess you're making, and talking about that Harley video I did earlier, it's they're actually not afraid to let her be a bad guy.
Oh yeah, no, she does horrendous things, and she doesn't seem like she's interested in actually being a good guy. She's interested in stopping bigger threats than her, but they're usually because they threaten her or her friends, and
Yeah.
not because she genuinely wants to like save like innocent people.
Is there something weird about, and this isn't the original question I was going to ask you, but is there something strange about the fact that a cartoon, which is part of, it's on HBO Max, and it's not a major part of DC's entertainment package, but it's there. Is it stranger that cartoon, the Harley Quinn cartoon, seems to have a better grasp on heroes and villains and kind of how to juggle these characters than the comic books they've been producing for 50 odd years?
It's really weird, yeah.
I'm stuck by that, but also by, there's this old debate about comics and movies and shows and how they can't interact. If, hey, we're coming out with a Spider-Man movie and it's expected to make a bunch of money, so the best thing we could possibly do is put Peter Parker in a coma and have Ben Reilly as Spider-Man during that time period. I've talked about this before, but what's your take? Why do the comics seem to take the exact opposite approach of these movies and shows that are getting a dramatically bigger amount of viewers? Is it stubbornness? Like, why is this?
I feel like there's multiple answers to this. I think one is there just isn't like the synergy going on, because in fairness to the publishing line, they don't always know, or they rarely know, or they find out when we do if a show's even been like renewed. Right. So it's like, oh well, we can do stuff like the Harley Quinn show, but like that's already like we don't know if it's coming back for a third season or not. And there was like a decent hiatus between the second and third season, but beyond that, there does seem, in addition to that lack of synergy, there's this weird self-fulfilling prophecy going on of, oh, no one buys the comics because the movie or the show's happening, so why even try then? Because no one goes and buys it for that. So then we don't even have to try to do anything that's close or mirrors that. And it feels like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It feels like we keep doing that. We keep seeing those results in the direct market, so we're just going to keep doing that and keep getting weirder and weirder. And the reality is, and we talked about this multiple times, people do buy the comics based on the movies and the shows that are coming out. They're just not going to comic shops. They're going to places like Amazon.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the proof is in every single time a movie comes out. Okay, so WandaVision comes out. And if you go to Amazon in the weeks that, that WandaVision is airing on Disney Plus, the West Coast Avengers trade paperbacks are spiking. The Vision Scarlet Witch series are going like starting to sell higher. Every single time there's been a series, you see Amazon, those numbers clock up. So there's clearly an interest. And I think this is the smoking gun that reveals that when people go to watch movies, or even more, a Disney Plus series where every week you're slowly getting a little bit more, like you saw with Game of Thrones, where people are running out who really don't like to read, but still would read those books for no other reason than they can get ahead in the story and brag about it to their friends. I mean, whatever. This stuff does go on. And yet we keep hearing this, well, the movie audience never crosses over the comic audience. They're not the same. Forget it. And then very weird behavior where Spider-Man to me is the biggest confusion to me. It's every single time there's been a movie, especially the newest run. Every single time the movie comes out, they do a status quo changing thing to the character that makes them completely and absolutely opposite of what's going on the screen. When what is it, Spider-Man Far From Home, where he heads over on his Euro trip. They're busy making Spider-Man a super rich tech billionaire in the comics, dating Mockingbird. It was the most bizarre. Why are they connecting these two at this moment?
Yeah.
You have Spider-Man coming out to deal with a multiverse, and he's with Mary Jane trying to figure all that out. And in the comic, they put him into a coma and bring a clone version of him out. Why? I mean, it feels like it's happened so many times. It doesn't feel like a coincidence. It feels like sabotage.
No, sure, I get it. I do think part of it's that self-fulfilling prophecy. I think there's a few more things going on, but like I remember Going back to watching Saturday morning cartoons in the '90s, I remember watching the Spider-Man cartoon
Yeah.
and having an interest in checking out some of the comics. I also had a bunch of like the video games. There was like the weird Genesis Kingpin's Revenge
Yeah.
game
Absolutely.
where they're dipping like you have to fight Kingpin before they dip Mary Jane in acid. Like very disturbing for a child. But
Yeah, she was asking for it, but yeah.
oh, sure. But that there was the Maximum Carnage. I had that on SNES.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And I think that's the first time I saw Deathlock was in that video game.
Hmm.
But yeah, so you have these things. So I'm like, oh, let me go check out a comic. And I find a comic and it's like two Spider-Men, like it's the Spider-Man and like Scarlet Spider fighting the Lady Doc Ock, and I'm just like, what the hell is like this? Isn't any what like
Sure.
and it took until Ultimate Spider-Man for me to get into the book.
Yeah.
I'm in like high school by then, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get this. And then I went back, I got into other stuff, but it was an impenetrable book for me at the time.
Yeah.
When this cartoon was happening, where you would think that's when you really want, people, especially younger people, getting involved. So I do think, yeah, it's like this turns into a few things because in fairness to Marvel's publishing line, when we're talking about something like Far From Home, for example, what are you going to do? You're just going to have Peter be in high school for 60
For sure.
years?
Yeah. No. No.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I'm very much respect the idea that you have shifted. The comic books have run their own timeline and everything else. It's not the same. The movies have rebooted twice now with from Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, now again, and so I get that the comic books I do not believe should suddenly alter their status quo and be like, all right, they're completely different now. But here's something that I've been thinking about lately is Grant Morrison. Would you say Grant Morrison is like a Hollywood shill, always, soulless corporate executive? Like when you think about somebody who's going to, write something, they're going to be completely all corporate, do exactly what their overlords say. Would that describe Grant Morrison to you? Probably not.
I don't think so. No.
So why is it that if you're talking about a movie comic synergy, when the X-Men movie was coming out, they ditched the costumes, they put the X-Men in kind of leather-based outfits in the movie. Grant Morrison's coming onto the X-Men around that time. He puts them in he does completely different things, but visually, the X-Men look vaguely similar to what's in the movie. I mean, it seemed fairly connected. And so I got to thinking, is Grant Morrison the person who's done the best at connecting the movies to the comics in their own way? So at least it feels like there's some kind of crossover. I mean, first of all, is that true? And Grant Morrison, like, would anybody have predicted that?
Yeah, I mean, there is a chance with Grant there, but
It's weird, right?
it is weird. I guess to some extent, Nancy Collins was doing Swamp Thing the same time that the Swamp Thing cartoon was happening.
Okay.
And I mean, her run pulls in some of the like Len Wein, Bernie Wrightson stuff, in addition to tapping into the Moore stuff. So maybe you could say that about Nancy.
My God, it's not worse, but that's equally strange. So
it is equally strange. There are. I'll also say I believe the timing hits about right. In Slott's run on Spider-Man, I believe they dealt with characters like the Lizard around the time that first Amazing Spider-Man movie came out.
with Garfield.
Yeah, I think so. I might be wrong.
They did, and I think that's happened where these characters show up, but the motivation, setting, background, and everything around these characters tends to be different. It feels like
Sure.
the most half-assed and often passive-aggressive effort, where these characters show up and it's like, well, the lizard's going to be in the movie, so we'll use the lizard, but we're going to change every single aspect about everything. And I guess the thing I'm questioning here is, why is it such a bad thing to link the comics? For that going back to that Harley Quinn cartoon,
Sure.
there's a Harley Quinn comic series right now. Do they feel the same to you, or?
No, it feels like the two books feel closer to each other than they do to the cartoon.
And the cartoon is arguably making the most money, has the most attention of all these. Would you say?
I'd imagine.
This is weird to me. I mean, look. Anyway, I don't understand. I just, and again, okay. So now you've given me a new name to kind of torture myself with. But are the people who've actually done the best job of trying to make the comic feel remotely in the same vein as the film? And again, the goal here is not to make them the same. You're not making a movie adaptation. Just make it feel like when people do what you can see them doing all the time. They go to the movie, they go to Amazon, they order the book, and they want to kind of have that vaguely the same. And if you go to something like Kirkman's Invincible or Walking Dead, it's absolutely going to feel the same. That adaptation's going to be fine. Lock and Key, other Umbrella Academy, stuff like that. But for the big two, Marvel and DC, is Grant Morrison and Nancy Collins our best examples of people who made this work? Are they the corporate shills? It's astounding.
They might be.
Good Lord.
I'm trying to think. In terms of now, I'm trying to think here.
You shouldn't have to think this hard.
No. But would you say that Snyder and Capullo on Batman after I believe like Dark Knight Rises was 2011? Would you say like sort of their run on Batman at least was the kind of thing where it's like, if you like the tone of this like sort of gritty, like dark, irredeemable, like there's something burning at the pit of Gotham kind of thing, like do you think that, following what you're saying in terms of you're not making the comic the same, but someone who likes the Nolan movies would probably like Snyder's run?
Yeah, I mean, maybe for tone, but but also, at parts where that movie was really going, didn't they decide to do that long Year Zero storyline followed up by Jim Gordon is now Mecha Batman? Like,
yeah.
Can you imagine going to see the final, Nolan movie and then going to the comic store and discovering that Jim Gordon was a mecha bunny-eared Batman during that time? What would you think?
Yeah, no, for sure. But I mean, like, it is tough because it's like, at what point do you get stuck in the endless cycle of, like, how often do you just end up then rehashing the same stories over and over? Because these movies, unfortunately, I think in a lot of ways recycle a lot of the same stories. I feel like the MCU and some other things now have been pushing a little past that, but I mean, now we're at a point where, you can't be like, oh, well, what are they just going to talk about? Like, what are they going to watch a movie about time travel in the multiverse and then have to deal with time travel in the multiverse in a comic? And like,
no, it's a tough balance. And I mean, I recognize what I'm asking for. I don't want to have the comic books just be slaves to the movie and just have to follow that. That's going to be terrible. At the same time, I want the comic books to take opportunities from the movies. I think the key there is, hey, maybe tonally try and at least link it together. I still find it laughable that Marvel bends over backwards to want to talk about Peter Parker needs to be relatable as a he can't be married, he can't have a kind of long term relationship. He's got to be relatable to us. But we're comfortable making him a tech mogul billionaire, and we're also comfortable swapping his body with Doc Ock, and we're also comfortable. I mean, God, come on, what are you talking about with relatable?
Oh yeah, no, that's very weird. I don't know, like some of these things, like it's all weird because it's like, oh, this is just how it is, and this is how it's always going to be until it's not, and that's just it. And yeah, I don't know. There are weird things about it. I mean, you see that all the time too, like characters like Batman being like, "Oh, well, we don't, we don't want to have him tied to like this like one relationship or something like that." And it's like, yeah, because similar to Spider-Man, like the being an orphaned billionaire with like 37 adopted kids is way more relatable.
Sure.
As soon as like you throw in Silver St. Cloud or Vicky Vale or
Yeah.
God,
All the
why am I blanking on her name? The one that gets murdered and he's framed for murder. It's I really liked her a lot. I hate that I'm blanking on her name, but
well, it is. I don't know. It seems like an odd paradox, but now I'm going to be tortured by the fact that I can add Nancy Collins to my list of to Graham Morrison and maybe the people who did this best.
Right?
I love
no,
it. By the way, just to remove all doubt, because we did interview her, I love Nancy Collins, and I love that Swamp Thing run. It is a great run. But like Grant, I would never say that Nancy Collins and Grant are like the greatest corporate shills for the movie comic synergy.
For sure. No. Vesper Fairchild. That's it.
There you go.
I figured it out. Yeah, or Vesper Fairchild. But yeah, it's because that would be horrible if that would be that'd be the worst if he dated someone and
yeah.
But yeah, no. And then I don't know. I always thought it would be nice for him to have someone because like I think some of the most interesting Batman stories are that like late Bronze Age, that late 70s up through Crisis, where it's like he's dating Silver St. Cloud, then he's dating Selina, and then she skips town, and then Vicky Vale comes back, and they start seeing each other, and then Selina comes back, and there's this like kind of weird like love triangle thing, and then Talia pops up every now and then, and there's still like tension there, and then like Nocturna is around, and it's like, ooh, is there something that like I thought that added like an extra layer to and humanize Batman in a way that we just don't get anymore.
No, I agree. And funnily enough, I think nearly every single movie they put out with Batman deals with that dating human element. He always has somebody, and those movies tend to make a lot of money. So maybe there's a reason they do that.
Yeah, no, that'd be crazy. Why would you do that? I mean, and I don't know. I liked, I think Silver St. Cloud's my favorite, but like I was happy when, you're reading Conway's run, and then it's like, who's this mysterious girl? Oh my God, it's Vicky. We haven't seen Vicky in years, except that one time she showed up in Bat Family that we forgot about. But don't worry about that. And it's great.
I don't know. It continues to be a very strange aspect of comics that it's even when handed, you may not like it, but even handed the synergy on a silver platter, it's you don't want to take that, and I don't get that at all.
No, for sure. I think building on your point just now, where you mentioned Batman, and they always do the love angle storyline in the movies, and they're always successful, and they never do that in the comics, really.
Mhm.
Especially the past, I don't know, decade or 2 decades. I mean, it's interesting because I think it took us like 25 fucking minutes to get here, but I think that kind of distills some of the arguments. Like, that's the kind of stuff where you want to see it replicated in the comics, of like,
For sure.
oh, uh, thinking of the character like this, you're taking this approach to the character, works on the big screen, but we're taking this element that's making the character more mainstream. We're shutting that out and not doing that in the comics. And I think that's where what you're saying, where it's like it feels like a doubling down, and it feels like
Yeah.
an actively not doing that. I think that's sort of like the perfect example of like, how many more times do you need to do a successful Batman movie that makes $1 billion, where there's a clear
There's a
love
formula
interest?
there. There's a clear
Yeah,
formula. And
you
they run it very effectively, and why that can't be just replicated is just bizarre to me. But I don't know.
sure.
I Joe, we got to do some more videos. We got a bunch of topics here to talk about. But before
Yeah.
we go, I got to ask you one question. So, you are a fan of Nathan Fielder's Rehearsal?
Yes.
Okay. Any predictions now where it's going?
Oh God. I mean, I'm so excited for this finale. I feel like does this I mean, he's clearly just going to be raising these like kid, like going through this on his own. But I feel like she has to come back at some point.
You would think.
I feel like she has to come back. I feel like God. I mean, what I would really love is for Skeet to come back at the end.
Hmm.
If there's any way to if this ends with him going to the actual alligator bar and meeting
Yep.
with Korsky, like that'd be great. Like,
Is
God,
it? Do you think? So, what are you looking forward to most? The next exciting issue of Avengers X-Men Eternals, or the Rehearsal finale?
oh my God, the rehearsal finale. Like, oh my God, like that's so exciting to me.
It is. It's been such a great, and that. Okay, we should do a video completely on this. There's reasons why I think that show works, and the sleight of hand that goes on with the storytelling that I think every comic writer should be trying to learn from right now.
Absolutely. And before people jump into the comments, yes, I know they recently did a Batman Catwoman love comic. Like, we all know that.
Yeah.
We were talking about other things that work. They were doing the Batcat thing before the most recent movie, and we can talk about why it works in the movie and what didn't translate and what they were trying to do with the Batman Catwoman thing in the comics. But in particular, we're talking, like, when I'm thinking about that stuff, I'm thinking of like Vicky Vale and Chase Meridian and like Selena, how she was in Batman Returns, which is different than how she is in the comics. The
Maybe
Rachel
maybe you're
character, all that stuff.
maybe you're thinking about the character as likable.
Yeah, there's that. There's a
Yeah.
likable or interesting or not there are other problems with that stuff that's not pulling what works in the movie.
Perfect. Well, Joe, thank you very much for the time today, and let's we got a bunch of things to talk about. It's been a while.
Yes, no, we should catch up and everyone check out. You know what? Forget about the Harley Quinn cartoon. Watch the Rehearsal on HBO Max. Like, my God.
If there's one show to watch, yeah, absolutely. You've got to watch that show. That is an absolutely and they got to stick with it, right? So you watch that first episode, you think you know what's going on, but you have to keep going.
Oh my God, yeah, it is. Oh God, I cannot get over how incredible this show is.
Yeah, truly, truly an amazing show. Well, Joe, thank you very much, and Everybody, thanks for listening.
Thank you.